The pilgrimage that we took was to go back to the place where our son had died. We didn't get to say goodbye to him. And when he died, the trauma was so multi-layered, the shock was so great. All we wanted to do as a family was huddle together in our living room. We had to keep our eyes on each other. We couldn't be separate. The fear was, what if something might happen to Jimmy? What if something might happen to our other kids? So we huddled together, and then the funeral had to be organized, which was really cathartic and very important to create a ritual, but impossibly challenging. And after the funeral, well, there's that sort of awful vacuum that Ian mentioned, I think. And we kind of decided at that point that we were going to carry on doing what we've always done, which is try and make films about life events that have impacted us. And we had this idea that we were going to go back to the place where Josh had died, but we weren't ready to do it together. And we knew we had to do it together as a family. And that took 2 years for us to be ready to go together and also to begin to make a film about it. And that was just interesting for us as a family, how different we were and how different everybody is in their grief. That nobody grieves like anyone else. And, you know, our kids were looking after us, we were looking after our kids, we're all keeping an eye on each other, we're all full of fear. And yet this plan was hatching. And the pilgrimage was something that we built up to really slowly, really gradually, very differently. Jimmy would have gone straight away. Jimmy would have been there the day after. Myself and my daughter.
As soon as we got the news via a couple of policemen that turned up on our door that Josh had died in Vietnam, it's coming up to 10 years now in January. But at the very first moment that we had that news, and after I'd picked myself off the floor,
literally,
I said I wanted to go to Vietnam. I wanted to go to the place where he had lost his life immediately. When our undertaker came round and we had to negotiate how it was that you repatriate a body, I said, I'm going to come with you. I'm going to come with you to Vietnam. But he actually had organised undertakers in Hanoi to do the job. And then I said, okay, well, at least I'll come with you to the airport to pick him, to pick him up. All I wanted to do at that moment in time was to be with Joshua. Whether he was dead or alive, I just wanted to be with him. I just needed to be in his presence somehow or other. And the distance of Vietnam to UK, what is it, 6,000 miles or something? I mean, it was horrendous. That distance, that physical geographic distance, it just sort of underscored the distance between us now as father and son. And I had to find some way or other to sort of recoup my sanity, if you like, as a result.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, the different ways we did it? Because for me, I just wanted to be warm and safe and by a fireplace, or, with the kids, I had to have my eyes on them. But I was so fearful of going to that place and being where Josh had been. And the whole journey has been a bit like Aisling was saying earlier, in a way, you've got to embrace your fear if you want to move forward in your grief. But the fear and the terror and the trauma is so paralyzing and catastrophic in those early days. And you think it will never change. But of course, what we've learned is that through making films, through writing, through being creative and active, we've been able to, I suppose, come to terms with the reality of this, and the traveling was part of that creative process.
I think the traveling back to Vietnam 2 years later, because as Jane was saying, it did take us that amount of time to get together as a family to agree that we were all in the right place to be able to do this, and that was extremely important that we did it as a foursome, because Josh has a brother and a sister. And that was, I think it was Julia Samuel that said the other day that, the love that you have lost when somebody who's close to you has died is made up by the love that you have in the relationships that you have around you, from the people who are living. And that's, for me, that's a really poignant way of describing how one can manage how you can manage your way out of those first initial horrendous pain of that loss by embracing the love that is around you and the love that you still have to give to those that are other members of your family or your friends.
It's almost
and
a
so
survival thing.
yeah, exactly. That business then of having decided to go back to Vietnam was effectively the catalyst to the next stages in the way in which we were dealing with Josh's death. After the films came after that, you see.
So, I love that Never Dies, obviously, that the title's in the film. And actually, I suppose we didn't know how we were going to hang on to the reality of our son's life and his death. But by making that film, which I think you're going to show a clip of.
We have a sense of before and after a cataclysmic event.
I remember that last hug when he left. Big, tall, strong young man going off out into the world for 6 months.
We are, I wouldn't say trying to turn the clock back, however much we would want to turn the clock back, but we are always looking back to that huge moment. Scroll back, reverse, undo, just get back to the moment before that happened. Get back to the moment in which, Josh was riding along on his motorbike and that guy didn't step out in front of him.
Okay, so I could have odds dropped the tie on here. See how this works out. Might be a chance the camera might actually just totally fall off, but see how it goes.
Jane and Jimmy, do you want to offer any final words about the film? Pick that up.
Yeah, well, going back to Vietnam was remarkable. We were met with the most incredible hospitality, and the people who had been at the scene of the incident came to meet us. They took time out, they hosted us, they looked after us, they wanted to take us to the exact spot where our Josh had died. We were ready to go there, but we were fearful, and every step of the way, their hospitality and warmth, because in Vietnam, it seems everybody knows how to grieve, which is another story, but they were alongside us and they held our hands metaphorically and took us to the place. They were really worried it had to be the precise place. It didn't matter to us where the precise place was, but they walked up and down the road saying it was here, it was here. A woman in the field had remembered it. And the teacher who had been the translator for the other boys who were with Josh when the incident happened, he told us that he goes back there regularly and he takes a cake so that Josh won't be lonely, and he places it by the side of the road. And I think it filled us with hope, this idea that people could give so much who knew nothing of us, our kind of insignificant lives, but they were so positive and able to get alongside us that we traveled back to that place and they were there. And that was really healing. It felt enveloping, didn't it, Jimmy? There was something really solid.
I think that people think of pilgrimage as sort of going back to remember. And sure enough, that's what we did. We went back to Vietnam, to the exact spot where Josh died, in order to make his death real for us. But it's also, it's all about learning something new as well. So I'm an atheist as far as I'm concerned. Josh is dead. He's no more. Yet for the people that had been there at the time of the accident and who then started to recount what had happened to us when we met them, they are firm believers in the afterlife. And the way in which we could then sort of interact with people was a wonderful learning curve, really, to expand a sense of how it is that we can relate to people across all sorts of boundaries, whether or not they're sort of metaphorical or physical. I mean, it was a great experience. So we came back with more than a sense of this is where Josh died. we came back with a sense of that there's other cultures out there, if you like, that we've been invited into, and it was great.
But it also made it real, because in a way, and this is so topical right now with COVID, because, you know, so many people are not with their loved ones when they die, and that's a terrible thing. You want to be able to be alongside people, and so ritual becomes more important than ever. You know, for us, going to that roadside was really important, creating a ritual, putting flowers or a cake there. You know, it doesn't matter maybe, and this is up for discussion, whether it's a month after the death or 2 years after the death, but we can all possibly do something when we're ready. And that's very relevant to what we're all living right now with this nightmare, this sort of bereavement epidemic, this grief monster that's taking over our lives with so many deaths, so much pain and loss.